So since this is the End Podcast, Young Entrepreneur Network, I wanted to go back about something you brought up about having a mentor.
My journey with mentorship, I really didn't have mentors growing up. At one point in my life, no mentor. I'm like, I need to get a coach. So I found his name's Scott Keel. He was introduced to me through a group called YPO, and this was the Christian Fellowship Network within YPO.
So you started a company called Green Mobile?
We did a little over $1 million in revenue in like the first year.
Why did it end?
Competition started coming in. The big guys started changing how they did contracts, and that was like our first, okay, now how do we shift our strategy and figure this out?
So you're like a true entrepreneur. That's awesome. All right, guys, welcome back to the Yen Podcast, episode 5. And today I'm excited to announce that I'm here with Josh Roberts with USA Talent Solutions. I got it right.
You got it. Yeah.
So thank you for being here today, Josh. I appreciate it. As you can tell, the setup's a little different. We're actually on site today with Josh. So thanks for letting us be here.
Yeah.
So why don't we just kick it off by you introducing yourself and telling us about what you do?
Yeah, I'm happy to be here, Matt. Thank you for the invitation. Once again, Josh Roberts, CEO of USA Talent Solutions. I have two main divisions within USA Talent Solutions. One is USA Field Services, and the other is USA Talent, which is the field service side is really kind of hyper-focused on the oil and gas industry. We provide inspection for pipeline construction. And on the talent side, we're focused on executive placement and basically anything within the office.
Gotcha. Well, that's cool. So how did you get into this?
That's a great question.
That's a pretty loaded question. So maybe let's start out. Let me hear about your background.
Right.
What's your background?
So I was born and raised initially in Louisiana, north part of Louisiana, on a farm, and throughout my early life, my dad worked for the railroad. Very kind of humble beginnings, and we started traveling as my dad kind of made his way up through the railroad and bounced around a lot. So Louisiana, Texas, back to Louisiana, and then landed in Kansas City. I guess that would have been probably in junior high. So you'll see, I've been in Pittsburgh now for, over 14 years, but I still have a little soft spot for Kansas City. Yeah. So you'll see my homes and things out there. Went to undergrad at University of Missouri. I kind of always had entrepreneurship has always kind of been a part of my life, even in high school. I was re-gripping, my golf team's golf clubs, trying to make some money on the side for that. And that kind of translated as I continued to grow. Got into the oil and gas industry. Had a company called Green Mobile in college with a bunch of fraternity brothers.
Nice.
And then after that, got into the oil and gas industry. Traveled a lot. Ended up studying abroad. Went and got my MBA abroad, and then landed in Pittsburgh in 2010. Where I got into the land business, and then started growing my company from there.
Nice.
And then got into the staffing business initially on the oil and gas side in 2017, and then I acquired a small staffing company in 2020, and that's kind of that's been the new new chapter, I guess.
Nice.
With the USA Talent Solutions.
That's awesome. So I'm going to go back a little bit. So when you started a company called Green Mobile.
Green Mobile.
When you were in college. Tell me about that with fraternity brothers. How many years?
Oh, man. If any of the fraternity brothers are watching, Green Mobile, that's probably a name they haven't heard in a while. But so I learned a lot from this, right? Like college experience at University of Missouri was great. And I was a business major, and but going through and books and reading things until you actually do it yourself, you really don't learn, right? Yeah. It's it's almost like a language. You can read, try to learn Spanish, but until you go and speak with the locals, you really don't understand the nuances of it. Yeah. So I think this was it was really a transformational time. I've had a couple of these. I would say that would be one where I really learned about business with Green Mobile. So basically, we were selling used cell phones. So imagine, let's go back in time. This is
nice.
This is 2004. Okay,
cool.
So
what was that, this EV3?
This is. These are like Razor flip phones, right?
Nice.
And imagine you're in college, right? You don't have a lot of disposable income, and at the time, if for those people, remember, typically what would happen is you would sign. It's not too different from now, but it is. So you would sign a contract, and typically be 2 to 3 years with, AT&T or Verizon.
Yep.
And they would give you a new phone. And as a college kid, you get a brand new phone, right? Nice. You're signed into this contract. It's a, way more than you can afford this phone, but you get it for free, right?
Yeah.
And then the following weekend, you go to a party, or you're at your dorm or fraternity house, and something happens, it gets dropped in the toilet or it gets broken. Now you're stuck with a 2 to 3 year contract, and you can't afford to buy a new phone, right? So this was the problem.
Yeah.
So how do we solve it?
That's awesome.
So we did that by basically taking used cell phones, refurbishing them, and reselling them. Mostly our target market was really college, say college kids, and then specifically college towns, right? So in Columbia, Missouri, this would be, so we kind of focused on those areas, and we set up kiosk in malls and did a bunch of commercials. And we also, that's where I learned also to do Google AdWords, right? So if you typed in, between 2004, 2007, if you typed in used cell phones into Google, we would be the top.
That's awesome.
The top website that would
So you
come
took
up.
advantage of that early.
Yeah. It was basically, we taught ourselves about Google AdWords. And the interesting thing initially, a lot of people, you could go onto eBay and buy a used cell phone. That was probably the solution that was there. But there would be, the same phone would be posted on eBay 10 different times, and it would be that individual phone. And so what we did, we sold a lot on eBay, but we would get one phone, a picture of that phone, what it would look like refurbished, and then just sell off that one, sell
Gotcha.
20, 30, 50 phones off that.
Yeah.
And it was 6 of us, I think.
That's awesome.
In the business, and we had commercials on TV. It was wild.
That's awesome.
Man. So we learned
it's pretty
finance, accounting,
business.
Marketing, everything. Yeah, I think we did a little over $1 million in
awesome.
revenue in like the first year. And then, competition started coming in. The big guys started changing how they did contracts, and that was like our first, okay, now how do we shift our strategy and figure this out? But man, we had a blast doing it, and we learned a lot. And that, I would say I learned more from that than I did,
Oh, I believe,
in the books.
Then, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I know, because going back to what you said about like, it's like another language, the analogy I always use too, it's like, I can tell you what a hot dog tastes like. I can tell you what it smells like, what it feels like, but you don't know what it tastes like until you actually take a taste of yourself. Right. I feel like that's how business is, and basically anything in life.
Yeah.
But so why did it end? Because you guys.
So yeah, we imagine this where we had, mostly fraternity brothers, which I think was good, because you had a trust factor, right? And that's an important part just in business, right? Gaining
exactly.
Trust and loyalty and all of those things were kind of built in a little bit, which helped us. But you also had people graduating and moving on, to other, we really thought we could, we had the map of the U.S., and here's all the different, we had kiosk in Champaign, Illinois, and St. Louis, and in Kansas City, and, let's just put one of these in every single college town across the U.S. But because of some of these changes, and the competition picked up, there were other people that were now using used cell phones as a key word, so the cost of per click went up. And AT&T and Verizon started also, I don't know if you remember, they also started selling refurbished cell phones as an option, because they obviously recognize this as a problem. So it was getting towards the end, we really weren't paying ourselves much,
Gotcha.
And then a little bit of survival mode, and we just, we kind of one by one ended up going in different directions, and there were a couple of us left at the end, but man, it was a tough decision. But I remember I literally packed up my car, Columbia, Missouri, and it was tough, because I was leaving and drove back to Louisiana to start as a landman in the oil and gas industry, which I knew nothing about at the time. So it was so
what got you into that? Was it like you saw the money in it, or did you have like a passion for it, like the land and oil?
Yeah, I would say early on it wasn't a passion. It was really survival, right? Like I need to figure out what I'm going to do next. And I still had this, like, it was really tough for me to go, I applied to work for AT&T and like some of these other places, and it never felt right. So the oil and gas industry, and specifically landmen at that time, were independent contractors. So that was like a little bit of a bridge for me.
Yeah.
My brother was in the industry. He was working at that time in Louisiana. The Haynesville shale was really blowing up. The price of gas was going through the roof, so there was a lot of activity. It was like, the modern day gold rush, very similar to what we experienced here, right, in the Appalachian region, in the early 2000s, 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14. But so I got in that. I literally sat in the courthouse, learned how to run title, and learned how to do leasing through my brother, and until the company that he was working for offered me a job, and that was kind of
That's cool.
It took off from there. You know?
So
a couple years later, I have a land company.
Yeah, I would say. So how did it transition from you working with them to starting your own thing? Did your brother come with you?
We did a little bit. Like at first, no. I ended up. So we were in Louisiana together, and then I took another position in Texas, and then I took another position in Colorado with a different company, and moved to Colorado, which was awesome. I love that because at the time my mom was also there, so that was nice. And then the kind of the crash happened in 2009, and I was at another kind of crossroads. I'd saved up enough money. I decided I was going to go get my MBA. Gotcha. And at that point decide, like, am I going to stay in this or am I not? And I didn't want to, at that time, I was kind of coming out of a long relationship. I wanted to just like literally get out of the country, right? Yeah. Like I want to do something crazy. I don't want to go study, you know, somewhere in the Midwest or in the East. Like I want to get out of the country. So I applied for Holt International Business School. It's a highly ranked international business school where you get to go to different locations throughout the MBA program. So I did that, went to London, Shanghai, and Dubai.
Wow.
And after that, I had also, I'd kind of dabbled around with some of my MBA buddies to start another company, but it basically ran out of money.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so I had to decide: do I want to try to do this, or do I go back into the oil and gas industry? And that's whenever I'd heard like this Marcellus is starting to kick off. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of activity, and so shortly after I got back from my MBA, I made the decision to move to Somerset, Pennsylvania, which I'd never heard of or been to in my life, in 2010, and got it back into the land business. And 2 years later, I was partnering with a couple business partners to start a land company.
That's awesome. So with your travels too, being in, you said Shanghai, London, and Dubai. Yeah. So what was that experience like out there? And do you think that like affected you in like business, or was it more so like cool experience?
I think number one, I think going to the MBA after I had some experience and business experience was was huge. I don't know if I would have just rolled right into my MBA, which a lot of times you can't even do for good reason, mm-hmm. right? Like getting that experience is important. The business school was also like case method, right? So you'd have these cases, and you basically have a discussion. It wasn't like a professor talking to you. So I had never been outside the country prior to that either, right? Awesome. So this was just like kind of trial by fire. I started in London first because they at least speak English, a majority. So I was like, I'll ease into this.
That's probably a good idea.
And then went to Shanghai, which was wild. And then Dubai, same. They all kind of have unique things about them that were interesting. But I learned a ton. I was more engaged in the actual business. I mean, this was like digging deeper into business, which I loved. And at that time, I was soaking it all in. And I had these great people from all over the world. So it wasn't just, I would say, the maybe 70 people in our class in London, maybe 6 Americans, right? So imagine you're getting all these different perspectives. So cool. It was, as I look back and reflect on it, definitely life-changing experience for me.
That's really cool.
And so when I got back, I had all that. Now I had more tools in my belt, definitely. And a better experience. And I was really motivated when I got back to start my own thing. It took a little bit of time, but it was always kind of in the back of my head, and I felt like I had better tools to do it. But
that's cool.
Learned quickly that there was still a lot more to learn.
There's always more to learn. As long as you know that you don't know everything. I feel like you're in a good spot. So to kind of piggyback off that, so what was it like living in like a different culture, like where you're kind of like obviously minority? Was that intimidating?
It was intimidating a little bit, exciting as well. Like I loved the challenge. I loved some of the unknowns. A little bit of chaos. I even now, I jokingly say, kind of jokingly, when things are smooth.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, then I start to like my radar comes up, right? I'm
so you're like a true entrepreneur. That's
like,
awesome.
This is going too smooth. This can't be right. I'm like, do I dribble some chaos into here? Just but no, I fed off of that, because I felt like I was learning so much every single day with just the culture and the business and all of these things and the new people that I was experiencing life with at that time. And a lot of people ask, which one do you like better, London, Shanghai, or Dubai, right? Like that's, I would say London was it's hard to, at first, it's a big city and most of the local people, just like a lot of other places, especially Americans, right? Yep. Like they tend to put their head down and, until you become really local, you don't really understand like the behind the scenes stuff. So I was in London for, I think, 7 months. In the second half of that, it became awesome, right? So I kind of understood the local now. I felt like more of a local at that time. Cool.
Sounds like Pittsburgh a little bit.
It is very much like Pittsburgh. Even when I'm still 14 years here now, and it's still like when somebody says, "Where are you from?" They're not asking you, where you're from. They're saying, "What high school did you go to?" Right?
Yes, exactly. That's so true.
So, and then Shanghai was probably my favorite. I think because of that, right? There was even more uncertainty. That was harder to communicate. So you had to get creative on how you were. I mean, I was writing on, pieces of paper that I needed toilet paper in my bathroom at the hotel we were staying, like trying to draw it because I couldn't communicate,
That's awesome.
So it's like these little and getting in a cab and trying to explain where you're going. It was, look, we're in 2024 now. This was 2009.
Yeah.
There was no Uber, the technology wasn't quite as good. So, but I think that was
there even Google Translate?
There was not.
No,
that would have been incredible.
Yeah,
so just reading the menu, you're like, but it forced you to learn quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that was a huge lesson, right? And even in business, when you have that type of stuff, I think it forces you to learn quickly and navigate and to find the best and fastest way from point A to point B. And then Dubai, I think, is more of a fantasy world for me. Like it was like, this is not reality. Like this is a dream. I mean, everything was the biggest and the best.
I heard Dubai is like beautiful.
It is beautiful, but it is. And I love the people there. It was so unique, but definitely kind of fantasy world. And you, during the day, it's completely different, than during the night and the evenings, even amongst the locals. Like everybody's a little more conservative during the day and cautious even in some ways. But it was cool to see the differences in those three cultures. And I took a lot back from that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
One last question about that. About this, which one had the best food?
I would say Shanghai again. Shanghai again.
Awesome.
Yeah. I love Chinese food.
Me too.
In general. So that was a highlight. London's food in certain restaurants, it could be really good, but in general it was. I remember when I first got off the plane in London, and the first night, I had my luggage with me. I didn't even have a flat, an apartment. So the first week I slept in hostels, basically, as I was going around the city trying to find a place to stay. And I remember the hotel. I got off the plane, stayed the night in the hotel, had breakfast, the next morning. It was like sausage and eggs, and it was just like, the sausage was like, you bite into it, and it was just like gooey. I'm like, oh no, they didn't cook it right. Like something's wrong here.
Yeah,
but it wasn't that. It was like literally, this is how they. How they.
It's
how
different.
they do breakfast, It's the British breakfast, and
that's funny.
But Shanghai was incredible. Food was great, and then they had some. There was obviously the expat areas where you could get some traditional American Italian stuff.
Yeah.
But, it was fun. I remember also like even tipping, right, is very different. And if you ever travel,
I didn't even think about that.
If you ever travel abroad, you need to like research, the tipping, because this is all through Europe and Asia. But I remember leaving a tip at a table in a very, this is a local Chinese restaurant in Shanghai, and I'm halfway down the road, and the person runs back out and like hands it to me, thinking I left it there because they don't accept tips.
Yeah. That's so funny.
It's not normal for them, right? And we were in some very local areas of Shanghai. This wasn't, Americanized. So it was very,
Well, it's nice of them.
Interesting.
Thinking
Yeah.
you lost your money to bring it
And
back.
then me trying to explain, no, this
Yeah.
is for you. It's like, okay.
That's funny. Well, that's super cool that you got to do that. So I feel like we walked through a little bit of your journey. So let's fast forward to staffing. So you're in the land business for a while, and then you got into the staffing. You said you purchased a company?
Yeah, I bought a small. It was from a mentor of mine. At the time, I was making another. There's like 3 of these kind of transitional times in my life. This would have been another one in kind of 2019. At the time, so I started with the land company. Ended up starting a timber clearing company called Timberland Construction, and then started a pipeline construction company called Blue Star, and this field services called USA Field Services. So we had kind of and it was all underneath this kind of the Earth Group, right? It was really let's say the back end, finance, accounting, HR, and the funds behind starting these individual companies. And maybe for another day, I'll explain how all of that came about. But this was, basically from 2012 through 2019. And would bring in people to help start and run those companies, and that's how they got started, and quickly grew. We were doubling every year, and then had a kind of a rock bottom moment in 2018, 2019. One of our biggest customers filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and so the ripple effect of that came down pretty hard. And God bless my at the time my business partners and I, and we were. It was challenging, right? And it's partnerships are good. They're easier, I should say, whenever things are good, and they get difficult when things get challenging, right? So we had kind of different views on how to come out of that, but ultimately decided to split.
Gotcha.
And unraveling this onion of shared services and all this was difficult, but I basically hit the basically hit the reset button. It was a very tough time in my life. It's also where I found my faith. So it was incredible, and sometimes I think you have to hit rock bottom to realize that you're not in control and you need some help. And that's basically what happened. I needed help outside of my, me thinking I could do it myself. Yeah. And so kind of a long answer to your question, I then, as part of separating all the companies, myself and another business partner, kept USA Field Services, so the staffing within oil and gas. And I would say within 6 months after that, really hyper focused on oil and gas. But this was kind of as we were coming into COVID, and a friend of mine, a mentor of mine, said, "Hey, I have this staffing company. I've had it for 25 years. It's just kind of, there's only a couple employees. It's up and down, not really making a lot of money. Would you be interested in looking at it?" And at the time, it was kind of the last thing on my mind.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It was like coming out of survival mode, but I did, and it just clicked, man. It was, cool. We talked about it. I was like, I think this actually, we never considered ourselves a staffing company with the inspection company, but it just, we were doing the exact same things, and we were really good at it. And so, made this little purchase of a company called Bailey Technical Services, and I realized they had some really good customers that I felt like were being underserved, and so we focused on the customer experience early on, and then COVID hit, and you could basically walk outside your door and pick up 5 or 10 new customers, begging you for help. So the timing was good, and it's really taken off from there. I'd say we basically started almost back from zero at that time, and it's been hyper growth since, and a lot of it's like a roller coaster,
Nice. Yeah,
a lot of ups and downs, but it's been a fun journey.
Yeah, that's awesome. So since this is the End Podcast, Young Entrepreneur Network, I wanted to go back about something you brought up about having a mentor. Could you kind of explain what that relationship looked like? And who that was? Was it someone like that you knew prior, or someone that you sought that mentorship from?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I'll probably at some point put some more thought into this. Just my journey with mentorship. I really didn't have mentors growing up, right? So I almost had to figure a lot of stuff out myself, which it slows things down,
Yeah.
and it was difficult. So I wish if I could go back and tell myself, 20 years ago, like, find these couple people, 1 or 2, 3 people that you can connect with that and lean into mentorship, because I just didn't do that. I didn't do a good job of it in college, and even after that, right? And so as I started to pick up some of these mentors later in life, it really it was incredible, the amount of knowledge and insight and discernment that they had, because they'd been through all the things that I was currently going through. So I also think it's probably it's starting to become a passion of mine now, because I also feel like I have some of these experiences that I can share with other people, because I see even younger entrepreneurs now that are fighting the battle,
for sure.
In any way to help them get through some of those challenges. Like, I think that's going to be part of my purpose. I say is to have a lasting impact on people's lives through faith and entrepreneurship. So it's really, I feel like that's what God put me here for.
That's awesome.
But he was one that I was leasing a building out from him. He owned a bunch of property and had 15 different companies, that he had built up over time, and I think he just he saw something in me and wanted to be part of helping me get to the next level, and it was phenomenal. And I still call him all the time for help and guidance, and I've been able to, even in my let's say this current season of life, which can be a year, sometimes 5 years, but I had another really impactful mentor. At one point in my life, no mentor, I'm like, I need to get a coach, right? I need a leadership coach or whatever, somebody that I can talk to and lead. Like, there's only so many things you can do if you have business partners, right? There are a lot of things you can talk with them about. There are a lot of things that are difficult. It's like also with marriage, right?
Yeah.
Kids are
exactly.
some things
That's a fact.
you need someone else to talk to, right? And so I found his name's Scott Keel. He was introduced to me through I'm in a group called YPO, and this was the Christian Fellowship Network within YPO, and he became he helped me through a lot of challenging times. So imagine I was going through this transformation, 18, 19, 20, and just through life, through business, personal, like there was a lot of other, leading up to that. Whenever you think you're in control, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Your personal life suffers, your marriage suffers, like everything suffers if you, at least in my experience when I had that mindset. And he helped me get out of it, and sometimes I call him my God coach, because I needed that foundation. And he also introduced me to EOS, which I don't know if you're familiar with.
I'm not.
EOS, it's the Entrepreneur Operating System.
Okay.
Gino Wickman wrote a book called Traction, and it's
I've heard of it.
He talks about EOS, and so he introduced me to that, and that was. Man, I wished I had that book.
Yeah.
Again, 10 years before, because it all clicked. It's like, these are the missing pieces, and it kind of puts a structure in place, especially for somebody like me. In EOS terms, you have visionaries and integrators. In layman's terms, that's CEO, president. It's like the person with the ideas and the person that executes or is good at the operations. And I would say I fall into a little bit of both, but mostly my happy place and what I think I'm, the greatest and best use of my skills and time is in the visionary piece, and I just never making that distinction, and then also how you build out accountability, your org chart, how you hire, promote, fire people. All of those things are kind of captured in this EOS. So he introduced me to that, and then also helped me. I self-implemented it in the company, and that was. One of the best books that I've ever read. So for anyone out there, if you're struggling with some of these things and feel like you need accountability and structure, EOS is a great tool. Yeah,
it sounds like it based on what you're saying. I'll have to check that out myself.
Yeah, it's awesome. Great.
And so what year did you become a Christian?
Man, that's a great. So I grew up in church. Like I was in a really small town in Louisiana, right? Where basically we went to church every day, or it was like Sunday, Wednesday, Friday.
Gotcha.
Sunday,
so you were multiple times a week.
It was like because it was almost like a community center too,
Yeah.
right? And at that age, this is 0 to 10 years old. Still trying to figure out what all this means, right? I have a daughter that's almost 7, and I'm still trying to.
Yeah.
She's going to figure out a lot of things on her own, but I'm trying to at least. provide some clarity around some things. But so it was part of my life growing up, and then I would say after we started traveling, this is life and everything. Like it just started to lose it really, and there were times I can look back and remember, what I'd say, God winks, right, that were along the way. That some I noticed, some I didn't. I always say like it's always there and around us. You just have to turn and notice it, right, and know that it's there. And I just started paying attention closer. But it really happened. I would say I can almost remember. It was like around September 11th, 2019. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Which the irony, which I didn't really put this all together until later on, and maybe even just a year ago. But I started a golf a charity outing basically at Nevillewood and partnered with Tunnel to Towers, Canines for Courage. And the first time we did it was on the 20th year anniversary of 9/11, which really was focused on veterans and first responders. And it's been it's been a huge success. It's right here in Pittsburgh. Awesome. We've raised a ton of money, but I don't even know. I don't even think I've told hardly maybe one or two people this, but the third year, I was looking back trying to answer that question. When did I have? Because I had kind of an experience, right, where I knew, okay, this is something's going on, and I looked back to try to figure out the date through some travel that I had been doing at that time, and I was able to find a plane ticket to a place that I was going where this experience happened, and it happened to be September 11th, which once again was the God wink that, okay, that's I think cool. You're, all of this other stuff, even with tunnels and all of the things that are happening, like it just tells you, I think for me, you're on the right path.
Yeah, that's really cool.
But it's a big part of my life. Even in, I don't like saying I have to be careful with, how I incorporate it into business. And it's something that is a challenge for me because it's part of my life. It's who I am.
Yeah.
And also as part of being a Christian, you basically, you say, I'm going to fail.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not ever going to live up to what I want to be,
Exactly.
And it's guaranteed that you're going to stumble and fall and make mistakes and sin, right? But now I have something that I can lean on to say, well, yeah, I screwed up. Like I need help and forgiveness. And so I really, that's. I can't remember if I told you this or not, but that's where I said, all right, Jesus, you're my CEO now. Take over. Tell me how to do this, because I obviously don't have it together. You know, and that was the genesis of really, I think, what is USA Talent Solutions now. So
that's awesome.
But it's not to say everybody needs to be a Christian or everybody needs to believe in God, right? And even within our company, we don't have that, right? But it's who I am. So it just kind of flows out, I guess.
Yeah. I love that. That's super cool. I'm also a Christian, so I can relate.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's cool. So have you think since that time in 2019, looking before and after, you think you give yourself a lot more grace now? Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's almost like a brand new life, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Born again.
Yeah. That's so cool. I know so I found you on LinkedIn. That's how I came across your profile. You looked young. And also I saw you had, I believe it was Philippians in your profile.
Yeah. Philippians 4:6.
Do you get people reaching out to you on LinkedIn regarding that at all? Or
I would imagine there are some that reach out. There are, yes.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people reach out to me for that. And there's probably some that intentionally don't, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because of that. And that's what I was kind of saying. It's run a little bit of a risk, but it's who I am. And ultimately, even for a non-Christian or somebody that doesn't believe in God, that Philippians 4:6 is a pretty awesome verse, right? Especially if you've ever had stress or anxiety or any of those things.
Yeah.
It's don't worry about anything, pray about everything.
Yeah.
Ask God for forgiveness and ask him for help, and then you'll experience peace beyond human understanding. I mean, that's as good as it gets. And it got me through a lot of crazy times, right? Because it's it does, man. It helps you realize that there's help.
Yeah.
For those things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I thought it was super cool that you had it, and kind of like profound that you had it in your profile, because I think nowadays, especially with social media, we try to relate to every single person.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a big common issue, especially with like younger people. It's like you don't want to like limit yourself to a certain type of person or anything like that. So instead of being who you are, you kind of like leave it open for interpretation.
Right.
So I commend you for doing that. I think that's really cool. And
Thank
like
you.
you said, it'll turn people away.
Yeah.
But in the end, not that I'm sure you wouldn't turn someone away for being a Christian, but some people will be turned off by it, but then others will be like kind of how it's like, oh, this is awesome kind of thing. And then you'll have people that don't really care.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
yeah,
It doesn't matter. But if nothing else, sometimes like Phil Ford say, like, what is that? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And then if they look it up, it's like, all right,
Yeah.
because I think that's part, it's
part of the Great Commission.
Yeah, it is.
That's super cool. Yeah, I love that.
Man, I love that. I love this. That about you. I feel like already, get the lights and everything
I
going
know,
here.
right? Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
The connection. So I'm happy that was that you
it
you
stood
stumbled on that. Yeah,
Yeah, I thought it was super cool because you don't see a lot of people on LinkedIn with a verse in their bio, especially because you go on Instagram, Facebook, and I think it's more prevalent, I guess you'd say, to see it in like someone's bio, but on LinkedIn, that's the professional network. So it's cool that you didn't care.
Yeah.
You said, I'm professional, but this is who I am.
yeah.
So
Yeah. That's I've put a lot of thought into that, man.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm, do I keep in God we trust on my logo or not? Is it too much? Is it, but ultimately, yeah, I mean, it's who I am. So, and I think the message is good regardless.
yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. I know. Yeah. If someone's
I
not a
think they're-
Christian, I mean, if they read the verse, they can't be like too mad. Like it's not like bashing anyone or anything.
I remember I had, I even sometimes put that on my, I love to play golf. Like golf is my happy place. And I put it on my golf ball sometimes, Philippians 4:6 and,
Lose it on purpose.
and then, it's like, I feel like, God, why are you making me hit? It's like all the balls that go into the woods. I'm
Then
like,
you,
okay.
Yeah, then you can
that's
just be
for
like,
somebody else.
Yeah, God just wants the ball over there. It's a good cop out.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, that's my reason.
That's so funny.
And I've had people like I had it was super. Oh, it's not random. It's the God. It's God wing, but say super random. Somebody found it. They posted it on Facebook. I had no idea who they were, and it was like an emotional post. And another friend of mine who was connected, this is Pittsburgh, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, everyone's connected somehow.
It's connected. So they posted, and then like, hey, is this your company? Is this yours? And I said, yeah. And it was like, man, this person was having a bad day, bad week, whatever it was, and has been fighting with anxiety pretty much their whole life, and walked in the woods, found this this golf ball with Philippians 4:6 on it. And it was just that moment that he needed, the message that he needed.
That was your golf ball?
It was my golf ball.
Wow,
yeah.
that's crazy.
And enough to where he posted, and it was like, it was incredible. So even his mom reached out to a person that I knew, and that's cool. That's you never know how it's going to impact people, right? In some weird way. But,
and it's always, I feel like when it comes to Christianity, I don't know how we got here, but this is super cool. This is the first time we've kind
I
of
wasn't expecting this.
Yeah, I would say kind of the first time we've gone this direction, this podcast, but I love it. But in Christianity, I feel like God is a complex God, but he's simple at the same time.
Yeah.
Like the message of like what he's telling us in the Bible, ultimately it's like Jesus died for you, like forgave us of our sins as long as you give your life to him. It's just like the simple things, like if you break it down, it's pretty simple. And just like the way he uses people, I feel like some people like try to almost like make it complex or like, I don't know how to explain it, but I guess bring it back to like just the golf ball, simple, simple placement, like, and then
couple letters and numbers.
Exactly. And then from that moment, God just works in like someone's life where he just reveals himself to that person. Like went to the golf course, not expecting to find God. And there he was sitting in the woods on your golf ball.
I have to think about that some more. It's like the complexity of it and the simpleness of it at the same time, right? Like all of the things that had to happen to make for that to be in the right place at the right time for the right person that needed it to see that message. It's and that's why I say it's happening everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening everywhere. And it just takes paying attention, I think, is half the battle, right?
Or, for sure,
or half the opportunity, and seeing it when it happens. It's even Moses when he's walking and he turns to see a burning bush, and it's not that he sees a burning bush and like decides he's going to go try to put out the fire, right? He's looking, right? He's paying attention. So he not only does he have to turn to see it, right? Sometimes you have to turn to see it there.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you have to realize like that there's something here more than just a burning bush, right? Yeah. So I think in life I've really started paying attention a lot more, and the more I pay attention and the more it takes over who I am. Like I'm seeing it right now.
Yeah,
I'm seeing it right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Did not expect this conversation, and now we're diving in. So
yeah, and even hopefully this podcast episode touches someone.
Yeah,
because they'll be watching
incredible.
The whole first half about London, Shanghai, then God.
Yeah,
so, that's cool. Oh well, I feel like this is going awesome, and I feel like this is a good kind of place to kind of wrap it up. I have one question for you that I ask everyone on the podcast. I put everyone on the spot.
Okay.
So
game on.
If someone's watching this podcast and they watch all of this, I don't know how long we've been going for. I don't have my clock up.
Yeah, we like clock.
Yeah.
It could be 10 minutes, could be an hour. You know,
exactly. So if there's one thing that someone could take out of this to get 1% better today, what would your advice be?
Better today in business.
Yeah, better today.
Entrepreneurship.
I would say you could just make it, you could honestly, just 1% better in general. Because even like how you talked about like, finding God impacted your walk with entrepreneurship, and like you gave yourself so much grace. To me, that's like 100% better.
Yeah.
So it's like, even it could be a personal thing that just affects someone all in all of their life, including entrepreneurship. So whatever you feel that 1% thing is.
Yeah. Oh man. Wow, the silence. I do think, kind of piggybacking off our conversation, I would have typically, I would typically have said, on the business side, I do, because we're doing this a little bit ourselves, but we just won Pittsburgh Fast 50. I'm just giving ourselves a little credit here for Pittsburgh Fast 50, but one of the lessons learned if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to grow is it doesn't always mean you need to offer more services. One of the things I'm learning is we can offer less, more specialized services and get better growth, better margins. It's like the 50-20 rule where, or the 8, if you've ever seen the book 80-20, right? Like 80% of your revenue or profit comes from 20% of your customers. And I learned this from Ben Hansen, so I'll give him credit. But it's also good to focus on the bottom 20%, right? Yeah. And a lot of times those can be your biggest customers with the lowest margins.
Yeah, exactly.
And so to kind of wrap this into wrap this up, but I do think this is kind of what I'm feeling on entrepreneurship right now is hyper focused on specialization. I think is huge, and it's hard to do that early on because you're really trying to figure out what is that specialization.
Exactly,
right?
That's actually something I feel like I've struggled with too. So I can relate to that.
Yeah, and then so all that's good, for entrepreneurship, but the Christian piece and faith really sometimes Christianity and the church and religion can sometimes get in the way of faith, and so the 1% is maybe there's so many business lessons in this and life lessons, but it's not trying to do everything yourself, and give it up to, in my case, give it up to a higher, power that has, unlimited abilities. Why would you not want that person, helping you run? Like that's my business partner, and he's got, cool. It's the best business partner in the world. But if it's not that, it can be, you've heard Bill Gates and everyone else say like, if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to find another room.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. I do think that just, our egos can get in the way, pride can get in the way. Yep. But trying to, sometimes just get on your knees and say, I can't control this. I need help with it. Whatever that looks like for you.
Oh, for sure.
Is definitely at least a 1%.
Yeah. I would
improvement.
Say, I would say that if you could do that, that'd be just about the 100%.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. You've been awesome to talk to. I really enjoyed my time.
Thank you, Matt. This has been great.
Yeah, I'm glad that you responded to my LinkedIn message.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Definitely.
Yeah. So where, before we wrap up, where can people find you?
LinkedIn's a good spot. I've leaned into LinkedIn. It's part of kind of our company, and I think it's also part of what makes us really good at staffing is some social media savvy stuff and not the old traditional stuff. So, But LinkedIn is best bet, or staffing-usa.com. You can find us there. Yeah, you can. I'll share my information, email, phone number. If anyone wants to reach out,
that sounds awesome.
happy to talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you heard Josh
thank
before.
You.
He said he likes mentorship and stuff. So if anyone has any questions about business, faith, life, gladly talk to you.
I'd be happy to. Yeah.
But yeah. Thank you again. Yeah. Thank you again, Josh. Appreciate you being on the podcast. USA Business Talent Solutions.
Oh yeah. I even have the cup right here. So you can see it. Yeah.
USA Talent Solutions.
Yeah.
Go find Josh on LinkedIn. Go connect with him. If you have any questions for him, message him. Thank you for tuning into the Yen Podcast, episode 5. We'll see you on the next one.